Paris Gare de Lyon railway station in Paris, one of the main terminal railway stations in the French capital. This railway station is beautiful and obviously I'll show you this as well. From here on we will be taking a TGV inOui high-speed train to Nice in the south of France. Our train will go non-stop with 300 km per hour to Marseille in the south, from where on we'll have a beautiful ride along the Côte d'Azur. So join me on this TGV inOui high-speed train from Paris, the capital of France, via Marseille along the high-speed line, and from there on along conventional railway lines to Nice. And a part of that journey is really scenic. For now, let's get this video on the track and let's roll the intro. Before we dive into this video, a quick comparison on the environmental impact if you're traveling by train, car and plane. The left side is for the entire route that I'll be taking today, from Rotterdam in the Netherlands to Nice in France, and the right side is for this specific trip report, what is from Paris to Nice within France. I'll get back to this at the end of the video. For now, let's dive into this video. Earlier that day I arrived in Paris with a high-speed train from the Netherlands. Where most trains do terminate at the railway station of Paris Gare du Nord, so Paris North Station, I took a train that was heading to Disneyland Paris, so Marne-la-Vallée. Simply because all the trains to Paris North Station were fully booked. And I guess I'm the one to blame for this, because I booked this pretty last minute on a very popular day. From the railway station of Paris North, but also the railway station for high-speed trains at the outskirts of Paris, so Marne-la-Vallée, what is Disneyland, and Charles de Gaulle, what is the airport, you can travel comfortably with the RER trains to the railway station of Gare de Lyon. And even though there are many trains that will bypass the city of Paris, so you don't always need to change trains within Paris. If you do this, you just have a bigger variety of trains. This map shows roughly what area will be served by what terminal station, and internationally it will go beyond this. The RER trains in Paris or the suburban trains. They're a little bit between metros and regional trains. The RER trains do arrive at the underground section of Gare de Lyon railway station, what's also mentioned as Hall 3. Apart from the RER trains, you also find the metro over here. At the railway station of Gare de Lyon, the railway station has been separated in 3 different halls. Hall 1 and 2, what are the terminal tracks for mainly high-speed trains, and Hall 3, what is basically the underground access to some other platforms in Hall 1 and Hall 2, and also where you find access to the RER, so suburban trains, and the metro. And actually the underground Hall 3 is rather big, but I won't spend too much time on that in this video. So, let's go up. My train today departed from Hall number 2, but before I show you that, let me show you the outside of the station. This here is straight at the front of the railway station of the oldest part, what is Hall number 1. Over here you also find the famous restaurant Le Train Bleu, but I'll show you this in a bit. At this point, but also at several other spots around the railway station, there are some taxi stands to get around. But personally, I always travel with the metro and the RER trains in Paris, and this works totally fine. But well, if you prefer a taxi, you find them as well, obviously. Let's go back to Hall number 1, and this is basically the concourse where you find the terminal tracks. And also the spot where you find the most, well, maybe one of the most special things about this railway station. What is the restaurant Le Train Bleu? This is located right at the concourse of Hall number 1, if you go up the stairs here. Le Train Bleu was originally created for the Exposition Universelle in 1900, and each dining room is themed to represent cities of regions in France, and they are all decorated with 41 paintings by some of the most popular artists at the same time. And from the balcony itself you also have a great view on the railroad tracks. I mean, this place is just amazing. It's not cheap at all, I guess it speaks for itself. This black coffee with a cake costed me €7, but it's worth every penny to enjoy this great restaurant and the amazing artworks. even though for coffee you most likely would sit somewhere in a corner. And I think this restaurant just shows that traveling by train is a very civilized way of traveling. Well, obviously it's not that black and white, and this also depends on many circumstances. However, I think that in general traveling by train is the most civilized way of traveling. But not in all situations, obviously. For now, let's move on to hall number 1, and this is the hall right at the front of the restaurant Le Train Bleu that I just showed you. At the center you'll find very big screens that will host information about departing and arriving trains, and you find these screens basically all over the railway station. For the tracks where you find the high-speed trains, there are access gates. Although at the moment these trains won't depart anytime soon, you can just go here as well. Apart from the high-speed trains, you also find regional and some non-high-speed long-distance trains that do also serve this railway station at these terminal tracks. Typically for French railway stations, there are some spots where you can wait and there are plenty of power sockets available. There's also free Wi-Fi, but personally I never tested this out. Some shops are located right at the middle of the concourse and obviously around the concourse as well. The Frecciarossa, these are the high-speed trains of the state-owned railway company of Italy, do also depart from hall number 1 at least most of the time. And there's also a small ticket shop for those trains at this hall. Previously, this same shop used to be for the Thello trains. These were the sleeper trains between Paris and Milan that have unfortunately been cancelled after COVID. But they were also being operated by the same railway company, Trenitalia. Actually, when COVID just hit in, I traveled on one of those trains and I also have a trip report on that. About tickets, there are lots of vending machines but also physical points where you can buy tickets for these trains. Also the train that I'll be taking today. However, keep in mind, for the long distance trains in France, tickets do come including a seat reservation, so full is full. Also keep in mind that the ticket prices are based on the demand of passengers. At the moment you book last minute a ticket, the demand might be pretty high, so you might also be paying the highest price. Keep this in mind. And trains in France are in general pretty well occupied, and that's the least I can say. The best way to move between hall number 1 and 2, at least in my opinion, is via the Grande Fresque de la Gare de Lyon. This awesome mural depicts 20 of the major cities and sites, including Paris, that can be accessed via the Paris-Menton railway line. This was the railway line wherefore this railway station has originally been built. Nowadays you find trains to much more destinations. As a matter of fact, this is one out of the 3 international railway stations in Paris, serving Italy, Spain and Switzerland. At this point you also have many more shops, including the ticket shop for the SNCF. That's also the company we'll be traveling on today, and this is the French state-owned railway company. Because on some lines there is a competition now between different railway companies, I advise you to buy train tickets in France, at least for the long distance trains, via the website and app of Trainline. On the Paris-Lyon section you will find the Frecciarossa high-speed trains that are of the state-owned railway company of Italy. Some of them also go to Italy obviously. And on the Lyon-Barcelona section and also Marseille to Spain section you also find the trains of the Spanish state-owned railway company Renfe. You can also use those trains domestically. And on the route to Italy there are even 2 companies, both the Italian and the French state-owned railway company. If you're traveling with Interrail or Eurail, like what I did for this journey, please keep in mind you need a reservation for the TGV inOui high-speed trains. I bought my reservation via the website of Rail Europe. This here is by the way hall number 2, and this is much more modern and brighter than hall number 1. There's a big screen that will host information about departing trains, and in a good old French tradition, the platform number pops up relatively last minute, although the hall number will be given way much more in advance. Today's train consisted of 2 TGV inOui Duplex trains that thus have a total capacity of a little over 1020 passengers. And the train was pretty fully booked. Therefore, all passengers heading to the train at once might be a little bit a hassle. But everything went pretty smooth. You have to go through the gates At the display at the gate, your seat number and carriage number will be given. And here is our train for today. And even though it might seem a little bit hectic before you can go through the gates, eventually there will be enough time to go to the train and to go to your seat and carriage. For the first section, my part of the train was at the front part, so I had to walk a little bit. I hope you like this video so far. If you do so, or if it's a helpful video to you, please give me a thumbs up. I really appreciate that. If you have any questions, or even if you just want to say hello, some comments, some feedback, please let me know in the comments. And if you'd like to see more trip reports like this channel is mainly focusing on long distance and international traveling to show you what it's like to travel on a more sustainable way of transportation, then hit the subscribe button if you haven't done this already. For now, let's continue with this video. Back to my train for today. Today I'll be traveling on the first generation of the TGV inOui Duplex trains, and these are basically the double-deck high-speed trains in France. However, I was traveling on one of the non-refurbished trains, but later on I noticed that most trains on the route Paris-Nice are refurbished trains. And I also traveled a little bit with one of those refurbished trains. So instead of showing you the train where I actually traveled on, I will show you the interior of one of the refurbished trains. Simply because if you are traveling on this route yourself with the TGV inOui trains, you most likely will travel in one of these trains as well, and especially since more of these trains will be refurbished in the future. The exterior though remains basically the same. Numbers 1 and 2 at the side of the train do indicate the first and the second class. The dining car has been marked crystal clear, and digital displays right next to all entrance doors will host the train number, the final destination, stops along the way, and the carriage number. Also, a bike icon does indicate exactly the area that's accessible for bikes. However, also keep in mind, if you're traveling with a bike, you need a reservation, and not all trains are open for bike reservations. The top speed for these trains is 300 km per hour. And that's also more or less the top speed for the biggest section of the route between Paris and Marseille. First, we'll be joining the Paris to Lyon high-speed line. This is the oldest high-speed railway line in all of Europe. After that, we will bypass Lyon on a newly built high-speed line and continue our way on a slightly newer high-speed line to Marseille. From Marseille, France's second biggest city, we will be joining a conventional railway line all the way to Nice. Even though the travel speed might be way slower on this route, we will be rewarded with some stunning views from the train along the coast. I'll show you this all in a bit. But first let's discover the train we had on this route. Well, actually not on this route, but the train I took a couple of days after, what you might find most on these routes as well. What do the TGV inOui Océane like? And these trains are called this way because the interior is very much inspired on the newer TGV inOui that do mainly serve the west coast and called TGV inOui Océane. Well, I do have a trip report on those trains as well, and because those trains are a little bit newer, I actually like those trains a little bit more than these refurbished trains. And even though the older interior of these trains is still pretty okay, I do have a trip report on those trains as well. I will link this all in the description of this video. They can use some upgrades, and I think it's good to see that, so they can be used for another 20 years or so. Just like all TGV inOui trains, at the moment you enter these trains, right next to the entrance doors, you will find screens that will host route information, the carriage number, and the class number has been given crystal clear. The moment you enter these trains, it has been clearly marked what way to go to for what seat numbers, so you know you have to go to the upper deck or not. Let's start off with the second class, and the second class comes in a 2x2 configuration, so 2 seats on both sides of the aisle. If you want to walk between the different carriages, this is only possible via the upper decks. Via the lower decks you find these dead ends. But actually this specific dead end over here in the second class, I think this is great if you're traveling as a family, for example. And there are even some more seats. This is a long distance train, so for luggage you'll find some special dedicated luggage racks within these compartments. Because this is a double-deck train, the overhead luggage racks are not that impressive, and that's the least I could say. Also, at the beginning of most compartments, there are dedicated luggage racks. Litter bins are mainly located at the vestibules and at the beginning of the open compartments. What way to go to for what facilities and sometimes also seat numbers within these trains has been clearly marked near the entrance doors of the open compartments, but also at the vestibules. Most seats in second class do come in an airline style seat composition or a long distance seat bus composition. Well, some people think this is standard for trains, but there are so many places where the standard is having seats opposite from each other. And personally, I don't like that. I prefer this much more. The special area for bikes is marked crystal clear, but in this situation it was being used for luggage for a group that was sitting at the upper deck. By the way, for luggage you officially need to tag your luggage, so keep this in mind if you're traveling on board of a French train. Let's do a seat tour of the most common seats you find in the second class. There's a really sturdy tray table in the seat in front of you and one power socket per 2 seats. All seats do have their individual USB socket and you can recline the seat with a button at the side. Even though it might look a little bit, well, not that big, I'm quite tall, so it's really more space than it looks like. Reading lights are integrated within these seats. Let it shine, baby. And at all windows, both at the upper and the lower deck, you will find a sunscreen. Seats facing each other, so the bay seats do have this kind of table you can make into a real table. And this way you have also quite a sturdy table. I like it that you can basically fold this all away. Power sockets are integrated within these tables as well, just like USB sockets. For the rest, these seats are basically the same as the other seats in second class. The armrests can be adjusted and the reading lights are also integrated within the seats and the button within the armrest. You'll find the seat numbers at the side of the seats. Just like most European long-distance trains, the first class comes in a 2x1 configuration, so 2 seats at one side of the aisle and 1 seat at the other side. This here is the accessible area in the first class. There's much more space for people traveling, for example, in a wheelchair. Here the layout is also slightly different. Just like the second class, you cannot walk through these trains if you do this via the lower deck. However, at the back of the lower deck in the first class, there's a wee bit more space for your luggage. For now, let's take a seat in one of the bay seats, so the seats facing each other. USB and power sockets are located at the side and you find this table, you can make it slightly bigger. Just like in the second class and basically everywhere within these trains, you find sunscreens at the side. Just like in the second class, a reading light is integrated within these seats. And if you want to recline these specific seats, this is all electric. Now the airline style or a touring car bus style seat compositions. And I like this much more. While they didn't forget the sunscreen, you find a coat hanger in the seat in front of you and there's also a small makeup mirror. The table, you can fold the lower part out and this is perfectly for if you, for example, have something small you want to put on or your phone. And this way your table is quite big. There's a power socket including a USB socket in the seat in front of you and a small reading light is integrated within this table. There's also a cup holder and here is a small table again. There's absolutely no shortage of power sockets if you're traveling in first class, because here you find some more, including USB sockets. So there's 3 USB sockets and 2 normal power plugs per person. I mean, I can almost bring my own laundry machine in here. Although that doesn't meet the luggage requirements, unfortunately. Unlike the TGV inOui Océane trains, within the open compartments and also within the dining car you won't find dedicated screens that will host route information. Roughly between the first and the second class you will find the dining car, although there's a part of the second class as well at the other side of the dining car. This is not in the older or non-refurbished TGV inOui trains. There the dining car is just the separation between first and second class. Near the dining car at the upper deck in the first class, there's a special area for the railway staff as well. In general you can find them always here or around the dining car along your journey. The dining car looks, well, just like the dining cars of the first generation TGVs. They are not as good as the real TGV Océane dining cars. They are a bit more comfortable, but these dining cars are still pretty fine, to be honest. The menu selection is okay-ish, it's not super wow, and in general my experience on French high-speed trains is that they always have food on stock. During the ride it can be really busy here, therefore you can also order online in an app and then just pick up your order once it's finished. Speaking of which, free Wi-Fi is available when on board of these trains. It doesn't just link your mobile device to an internet connection, but also to an onboard entertainment and infotainment system. You can watch movies, read magazines, newspapers, and obviously there's also live route information. Because no train tour is complete without showing you the toilets, let's head to the toilets. But before we do this, let's go to the diaper changing or nursery space area. I don't know how you want to mention it, but anyway, the little kid area within the second class. And this is a dedicated zone. It's located here on the left. You won't find dedicated zones for kids in terms of that you have, well, play areas or so, but you have this. Apart from that, in the first class you also have the bigger accessible toilet that can also be used as a diaper changing facility. This might be the biggest toilet on these trains and the size is okay-ish. However, for an accessible toilet I find it a bit tight, to be honest. The normal toilets at the lower deck, or well, for the regular toilets, the most spacious ones. Yeah, they're not super tight, but they're definitely not spacious either. They're okay-ish. Well, when it comes to tight toilets, then you find them at the upper deck. These toilets, I mean, I can hardly stand in here. But please do note, I am taller than average. For the last bit of this video, I'll show you some views from the train. I didn't record it when the train was departing from Paris. The first section along the high-speed line until Marseille is not the prettiest section, but it gets pretty stunning, especially at the last section of this route. And for now I'll just show you these views from the train. I'll get back to you at the very end of this video.
We'll fly away into the sunlight. We'll hide away all of our secrets. I'll wait for you in the darkness. There's no stopping us right now. fly away into the sunlight. We'll hide away all of our secrets. Away for you in the darkness. There's no stopping us right now.
That's it for this video. I'm right now in Nice. And actually we spent some days here and now we'll continue our way to Italy. We'll be trip reports about that as well. And in that video I featured this railway station. For now I hope this has been a helpful video to you, or you liked it, so probably both. If so, please give me a thumbs up, I really appreciate that. And if you'd like to see more trip reports about more sustainable ways of transportation, the main focus for this channel is long distance and or international traveling. Well, this is definitely a long distance and almost an international journey. Then hit that subscribe button if you haven't done this already. That's it for now. Before we really end up this video, one last thing. As promised at the beginning of the video, I'll get back to the environmental impact as well. These graphs show the environmental impact on the route Nice to Paris, that's on the right side, and Rotterdam in the Netherlands, where I traveled from via Paris to Nice in France. I think this graph speaks for itself, but I want to highlight this a little bit more. For example, I looked up the amount of energy, so basically the carbon dioxide we produce for heating up our house for approximately 9 months, what includes winter as well. And I have to add up to this, we are working from home a lot. And what turns out, the amount of energy we need to heat up our house is less than the extra amount of energy you need for 2 people to have a return flight from the Netherlands to Nice. This is quite a big impact, to be honest. We are having big campaigns everywhere that we should turn the heating a little bit lower to conserve some energy. And then the aviation industry is growing even more. I just don't get this. The aviation industry is, well, if you look in the total picture, not the biggest polluter, but they are quite a big polluter, and especially in the transportation industry. Of course, when it comes to decarbonizing our climate, we also need to start with the big companies. However, a fact is, and this counts especially for the aviation industry, the only way to reduce emissions is to reduce demand. So, by considering how to travel and if it's really necessary to take a plane or not, and looking for alternatives, you can make a big impact by yourself as well. And of course, I know that railway companies can make railway traveling a lot easier as well, and especially when it comes to international traveling. But this just makes me really angry. The aviation industry is talking a lot about becoming more sustainable, but just look at these numbers. How are you gonna do this? And apart from that, the targets the aviation industry has set for themselves in the past to become more sustainable, they actually never met one of these goals. So yeah, how can we even take this aviation industry serious? It's just one big joke. And I just want to make this more clear to other people. Well, this video takes way too long and I can talk about the environmental impact for way too long, but that's not what I'm gonna do. For now, I really hope you liked this video or this has been helpful. If you want to see other trip reports, you can find them on this channel as well. And you can always subscribe to see more. And in the description of this video, you find a link to a map where you can find all videos as well. See you on the next one.